how about a quick introduction to morphing? What we have is object morphing, and what object morphing is each one of our objects, which is built of points, each point has a specific place for it to be in X, Y, and Z coordinate. When we have morphing, we create a second set of coordinates for each of those points. So I'm going to call this one Morph Wide. So what you do, you start with your basic object and you modify it. What I'm going to do is move these, just move these out of the way so it's wide of all things. And this now becomes the Morph Wide. If I go back to my base, it's all together. Morph Wide is still there. And I think I'm going to make another Morph Target. The way I make a Morph Target is I click on this M button and select New. And I'm going to call this one Morph Tall. See, it jumps back to my base object. I'm going to select this one and move these up. Okay, over there. In my spacebar, deselect it. T for move it down. So I now have two sets of morph. And my base. A lot of people think morphing, only character animation. Not true. I use morphing for everything from logos to industrial type animation because sometimes it's just easier to do it that way. It's a lot less work sometimes to have these motions embedded in the object. So I'm going to save this. Save object. I have my base, my Morph Tall, and my Morph Wide. I'll now load my logo morph object. So how do I get this to morph? How do I get this to change to access those? Well, I go into my object properties, and what's happening is this object technically is getting deformed from its original shape. So under object properties, and this will look a little bit different in 8 than it will in 7. However, the process is the same. Click on Deform. I'm going to add displacement, which is in this big list of stuff. Find one that says Morph Mixer. Now you see where it says 2 endomorphs? The endomorphs are those alternate shapes of this object. This shape is the default. This is the base shape. When I modify it, when I move the letters around, it became a different shape and a different set of data for all those points. So I'm double clicking on here, which brings up the new Morph Mixer, and this is kind of in a stage of flux. And it looks different in 8 than it did in 7.5, and actually has had several looks in 8 already. But what we have here at the very basic, I'm going to advance this to the end. We have these sliders, and they are kind of like auto key sliders, even with auto key turned off. I move this. You can see the change. This is the base. They are moving into the position of the endomorph. This is the modified shape. What's interesting is it's interpolating the difference, almost like keyframing, like the way keyframing works. It's here on this frame and it's there. Now you see how the E has lit up? That means it's creating an envelope. I'm going to click on that. Remember how we looked at the graph editor? Same deal. Here it's at 100%, here it's at 0. I can go in, I can add points, I can delete points, I can change points. So we have two sets of sliders here. The K represents the keyframe. This is different in 8. Let me bring that back to 0. I can actually punch in 0 here. and then the morph wide. What's interesting is I can put it into negative numbers, and I can use both of them at the same time. So let's go a little crazy here. It's automatically creating keyframes, giving me an envelope. Now when I scrub this, they're flying all over the place. The important thing to know about morphing is that when the points move to their new shape, they always go in a straight line. So let's go in here. I'm going to select these by taking my right mouse button, selecting them, and just hitting the delete key to get rid of that one, so we only see the one moving. See, you can actually see the slider moving. They can only move in straight lines. However, when you combine two of them, you can get arcs, and it's kind of like, actually it's almost exactly like using an Etch-a-Sketch. You know how you have an Etch-a-Sketch with the two knobs on each side, and you can either go right and left or up and down, but if you're very careful and you move both at the same time, you can make a curve. That's exactly what's going on with morphing. And you can have quite a few numbers of endomorphs, and even though we're doing this to the logo, the same thing applies if you have a character's head and you grab the nose, move it down, grab the lips, move them out. You're creating a new endomorph, and you're mixing between those potential shapes.